The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of weak cries. In the deep forest, under the pale light of 2 moons, the wolf pack huddled close together. The cubs lay in the center of the circle, their small bodies shaking with every breath. Their fur was damp with sweat, their eyes half shut, and their voices soft and broken. They were not playing. They were not fighting. They were dying. The pack leader, a large wolf with scars across his muzzle, stood above them. His eyes glowed yellow in the dark. His chest rose and fell with anger, fear, and helplessness. He had led the pack through battles with rival packs. He had fought off hunters and clawed down beasts larger than himself. But now, when his cubs needed him most, his teeth and claws were useless. No growl, no fight, no hunt could save him from the sickness. One cub coughed, a thin and sharp sound that cut through the forest air. The mother whimpered and pressed her nose against the cub's side, trying to give comfort. But comfort did not stop the shaking. Comfort did not stop the life from slipping away. The leader growled low, a sound of frustration, but there was nothing he could do. The wolves of the pack looked at one another. Their eyes were wide, their ears flat. They had seen cubs grow sick before, but never like this. This sickness was strange. It spread fast. It made the strong weak. It made the young weaker still. The pack had always been strong together. Now they were breaking apart inside. The forest around them seemed to know. In the distance, predators waited. Their shapes moved in the shadows, circling, watching. The cries of dying cubs were a signal. Weakness was a call. The wolves knew other hunters were waiting for the moment when the pack could not defend itself. And that moment was coming closer with every cough, every shallow breath. The pack leader lifted his head to the sky and howled. The sound carried far, a deep cry of pain and fury. The trees shook with the echo, but the sky gave no answer. The moons gave no help. The older wolves came forward and sniffed the cubs. Some lowered their heads, already mourning. Some growled with anger, as if they could fight the sickness itself. But no matter what they felt, the truth was clear. If nothing changed soon, the cubs would all be gone before the next sunrise. The leader lowered his head and pressed his nose against the smallest cub. The tiny body was hot, too hot. The cub whined weakly, a sound so soft it barely touched the air. The leader closed his eyes. A pack without cubs was a pack without a future. Without these young, their line would end. The wolves gathered close, waiting for the leader to decide what to do. They were ready to move, ready to fight, ready to follow him. But even he had no path forward. He could not order them to hunt a cure. He could not order them to fight death. His silence was heavy. Then, from the shadows, when the scout stepped forward, his fur was torn from a recent hunt, his side marked with blood that was not his own. He bowed his head before the leader and gave a sharp bark. The sound was not one of challenge. It was one of warning. The scout had seen something strange. The leader raised his head and growled for him to speak. The scout paced, restless, and then howled once, short and sharp. His howl carried the smell of fire, metal, and something that was not of their world. The wolves around him stiffened. They knew the sound. They knew the smell. It was the mark of the strangers, the ones called humans. The pack shifted uneasily. Stories of humans were whispered in the forest. Some called them killers. Some called them saviors. All knew they were dangerous. They carried strange tools that burned, cut, and healed. They were not beasts. They were not prey. They were something else. The scout's eyes told the rest. He had seen a human nearby, alone, with a pack on his back and strange things in his hands. The leader's heart beat faster. Humans were not trusted, but the cubs were dying. No wolf healer had the answer. No herb or root had helped. If the stories were true, If the human carried the power to heal, then perhaps there was a chance. The pack stirred, voices rising in growls and whines. Some wanted to chase the human out before danger came closer. Others wanted to try, to take the risk. The wolves were torn, their voices mixing like storm winds. The leader stood tall, his eyes burning. He looked down at his cubs. Their breaths were shallow. Their bodies were weak. He had no time for fear. The forest was full of enemies waiting to strike. But the greatest enemy was already inside, tearing at his young. He turned his head toward the place where the scout had seen the human. His decision was not yet spoken, but it was already forming. The pack waited. The cubs cried. The night held its breath. And in the shadows, not far away, a human walked alone, unaware that the future of a wolf pack now rested on him. The forest was restless that night. The wolves moved like shadows through the trees, silent but swift. Their paws barely touched the ground as they followed the faint trail left by the stranger. The scout had led them well. The scent of smoke and strange chemicals lingered in the air, unnatural and sharp, carried on the wind. The pack leader kept a front. His ears flicked, listening to every sound. His eyes scanned the shadows for danger. Behind him, the pack followed close, growls low in their throats. Their cubs were weak and time was short. But to walk toward a human was to walk toward risk. None forgot the old stories. Some wolves said humans killed without mercy. Others said humans saved creatures no one else could. The truth was hidden behind fear and rumor. Tonight, the leader would learn for himself. The forest grew quiet as they neared a clearing. Even the insects seemed to hush. The smell of fire was stronger now. The wolves crouched low, slipping between roots and ferns, until their eyes caught sight of something strange. In the middle of the clearing sat a human. He was alone, sitting beside a small fire that burned blue with strange fuel. A pack lay beside him, heavy with tools and glass vials. His hands moved carefully as he arranged his things in neat rows. Metal glinted in the firelight. Small lights blinked on some of the devices. The wolves did not know what they were, but the leader could see they were not weapons. Not yet. The human was not large. His fur was only on his head and face, and his skin was pale under the firelight. His clothes were torn in places, stained with dirt and blood, but his movements were steady. His eyes were tired, yet sharp, watching every detail of what he touched. The pack leader studied him with cold eyes. Here was no hunter, waiting with a gun. Here was a worker, a healer perhaps. Still, a healer could be dangerous in other ways. The wolves fanned out in a circle, surrounding the clearing. Their bodies melted into the dark, only their eyes glowing faint yellow in the moonlight. The human paused, lifting his head. His gaze moved to the trees. He could not see them, but he knew something was there. The leader gave a signal, a low rumble in his chest. Slowly, the wolves stepped out from the shadows, one by one, silent as death. The human's eyes widened as he saw them. His hand twitched toward his pack, but he stopped. Instead of grabbing a weapon, he lifted both hands and showed them empty. His fingers spread wide in the firelight, palms open. The wolves froze. This was not the move of prey. This was not the move of a predator either. It was something else. The leader growled, stepping forward. His size made the human look small, fragile. The pack closed in tighter. Some bared their teeth, ready to strike, but the human did not run. He did not raise his voice. He simply lowered himself slowly until he was on one knee, eyes never leaving the leader. Then he spoke. The words were soft, low, and calm. The wolves did not understand the language, but the sound carried meaning. It was not the bark of command, nor the cry of fear. It was the sound of one who wished to give peace. The pack tilted their heads, confused. The leader listened, his growl fading. He could not understand the words, but the tone mattered. It was the same tone a wolf used with a frightened cub, gentle and steady. The human reached into his pack with slow movements. The wolves tensed, muscles ready to leap. But he only pulled out a small bag and opened it. Inside were strips of dried meat. He laid them on the ground before him and backed away. The smell reached the wolves first. It was strong, rich, different from their usual prey. Hunger stirred in their stomachs, but none moved forward. The leader kept his eyes locked on the human, watching for trickery. The human did not push the offering closer. He only waited. His eyes were calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. He knew what stood before him could tear him apart in moments. But fear did not rule his movements. Minutes passed, long and heavy. The wolves growled and whispered to one another. Some wanted to attack. Some wanted to leave. But the leader's eyes stayed on the human, studying him. Finally, the leader stepped forward. His paws made no sound on the dirt. He sniffed the air, then lowered his head toward the food. His teeth hovered, ready to bite not just the meat, but the man if he moved wrong. The human stayed still. His breathing was slow. His eyes remained calm. The leader took the meat and chewed slowly. The taste was strange, salty, but it was good. He swallowed, then turned his head back to his pack. His growl was short, sharp, a command. The other wolves relaxed slightly, though they did not approach the food. The leader had made his choice. For now, the human would live. The human seemed to understand. He gave a small nod and lowered his head, almost like a bow. Then he reached again into his pack, slower than before. This time he pulled out a small glowing device. He pressed it against his wrist, and a soft light blinked. The wolves leaned forward, ears pricked. The human held the device out, showing it to them. He pressed a button and a soft sound hummed. It was not loud, not harsh, but soothing, like a low song. The leader did not understand the purpose, but he sensed no danger. The human placed the device down gently, then spread his hands again. The pack leader turned back to his wolves. Their eyes shone with questions. Could this creature truly help? Could this fragile, strange being hold the answer to their dying cubs? The leader looked once more at the human. He thought of the cubs coughing, their breaths shallow. He thought of the predators circling, waiting for the pack to fall. He thought of the silence that would come if his cubs were lost. Slowly, he stepped closer to the human. The firelight shone on his scars, on his golden eyes. He stood tall, close enough now that the human could see every sharp tooth, every line of muscle. The human did not flinch. He whispered again, soft and calm, words carried by a voice that promised no harm. The leader's decision was not yet complete. Trust was not given so easily. But something had changed in that clearing. The wolves had seen a human stand without fear, offer food instead of fire, speak peace instead of threat. The night was still young. The cubs were still dying. And the choice hung heavy in the air, to trust this strange creature or to turn away and face death alone. The pack leader raised his head. His growl was low, steady, a signal of warning, but also of patience. The human was not their enemy, yet, but whether he would be friend or foe, only the next moments would decide. The wolves circled tighter, their eyes glowing. The human remained still, hands open, waiting. The forest held its breath again. First contact had been made. The next step would decide life or death. The fire burned low in the clearing, throwing long shadows across the trees. The wolves had formed a circle around the human, their bodies tense, eyes glowing like amber sparks in the dark. No one moved quickly. No one dared. Every heartbeat felt heavy, every breath slow. The leader stood in front, chest broad, head high. His scarred muzzle showed age and strength, but his eyes carried worry. The human knelt before him, calm and silent, hands still open. For a long time, they stared at each other, the beast and the stranger. Behind the leader, the wolves whispered with low growls. Their voices rose and fell like wind over stone. Some growled with distrust, some whined with hope, but none could agree. The cubs were dying. The human was dangerous. What choice was left? The leader's ears twitched. He could still hear the faint memory of coughing, weak cries echoing from the den far behind them. Every moment wasted here was another step toward death for the young. His heart was pulled in two directions. One side demanded caution. The other demanded action. The human seemed to sense this. Slowly, with no sudden movement, he reached into his pack again. The wolves snarled, teeth bared, bodies leaning forward. But the human did not show fear. He drew out a small box, silver and clean. Lights blinked softly along its side. He pressed a button, and the box opened with a hiss. Inside were small tubes of glass filled with clear liquid. The wolves froze. They did not know what these things were. They smelled strange, sharp, unnatural. The human lifted one tube carefully and held it up to the firelight. The liquid inside shimmered, glowing faintly blue. The leader's growl rumbled deep in his chest. He stepped forward, muzzle close, and sniffed. The scent was bitter, chemical, unlike any herb or root in the forest. He pulled back, uncertain. The human pointed to the tube, then touched his own chest. He spoke again, soft words that rolled like a stream over stones. Though the wolves could not understand, the meaning was clear enough. He was saying, "This can help. Let me use it." The pack shifted nervously. One young wolf barked sharply, tail stiff. His meaning was simple: no trust. Kill him before it is too late. Another whined, ears back, her voice softer. "We have no other choice. The cubs are dying." The leader looked from one to the other. His heart twisted. His pack needed him to decide. At last, he gave a sharp bark. Two wolves slipped away into the forest, running fast. The others understood. They would fetch the cubs. The decision was not final yet, but the leader was willing to test this stranger. The human seemed to understand. He lowered his head slightly, almost in respect, and closed the box. He placed it gently on the ground, keeping his hands visible. The minutes dragged. The night grew colder. The fire crackled, spitting sparks into the dark. The wolves did not take their eyes off the human. He remained still, waiting, only shifting to feed another piece of wood to the flames. Then the sound came. The scouts were returning. From between the trees, they appeared, carrying the cubs gently in their jaws. The small bodies hung limp, for dull, eyes closed. Their breaths rattled like broken leaves. The pack's hearts ached at the sight. Whines filled the air, soft and desperate. The mothers rushed forward, nuzzling the cubs, licking their fur. But nothing changed. The sickness still clung to them. The leader stepped forward, blocking the human's view for a moment. He looked down at his cubs, his children, his future. He pressed his nose against the smallest, feeling the heat of fever. Weak paws shifted, barely moving. The sound of struggle in the cub's throat was soft but painful. The leader lifted his head and met the human's eyes. He gave a low growl, not a threat, but command. "Show us what you can do." The human's face tightened. He reached for his box again, opening it slowly. He pulled out one of the glowing tubes and a small injector made of metal and glass. The wolves tensed, hackles rising. This tool looked like a weapon. The human knew it. He paused, holding it up in the firelight, showing every part of it, turning it in his hand. He spoke again, calm words, explaining though they could not understand. He pressed the injector against his own arm and clicked. A softness escaped. He winced slightly, then pulled it back to show nothing harmful had happened. The wolves growled in surprise. This was no attack. This was medicine. The leader studied the man. He had risked his own body to show trust. That was not the action of a liar. That was the action of one who believed in his own tools. The leader barked once, sharp. The wolves parted, allowing the human closer. The human moved with care, crawling on his knees, slow as if approaching a frightened animal. His eyes never left the cub. He placed the injector gently against the cub's neck. The mother growled, lips curling, but the leader snapped at her. She obeyed, stepping back. The click came. The liquid entered. The cub whimpered weakly, twitching. The wolves tensed, ready to leap if harm came. But then the cub's breathing eased. The rattling cough grew softer. Its body, though still weak, loosened as if some pain had lifted. The wolves stared in shock. Whines rose, soft and questioning. Could this truly be working? The human sat back, breathing heavy, sweat on his brow. He looked at the leader, his eyes tired but steady. His voice came again, soft, but this time the tone was different. It carried urgency. Let me help the others too. The leader turned to the cub, then to the human, then to his pack. He could feel the weight of every eye on him. The choice was no longer just his. It was for all of them. One wolf barked angrily, tail stiff. It could be a trick. Another whined, ears down. But the cub is breathing better. The pack's voices clashed, filling the clearing with tension. The leader growled, louder than all of them, silencing the noise. His decision was clear. He stepped aside, opening the space between the cubs and the human. His meaning was simple. Do it. Heal them. The pack froze in shock. Never before had their leader trusted a stranger like this. But none dared argue now. His will was law. The human nodded once, as if thanking the leader for the chance. He reached for more tubes, more injectors. His hand shook slightly from exhaustion, but he did not stop. One by one, he treated the cubs. Each injection brought a whimper, a twitch, then a breath that was stronger than before. The wolves watched in silence, their hearts pounding. For the first time in many nights, hope flickered. The leader stood tall, eyes fixed on the human. Trust had been given. Now it would be tested. The decision was made. The clearing was filled with silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the shallow breaths of the cubs. The human knelt on the ground, sweat running down his forehead, hands steady though his body trembled from exhaustion. Before him lay the smallest cub, still weak, but breathing more easily after the first injection. The wolves stared with wide eyes. Some lowered their heads, confused by what they had seen. Others shifted nervously, paws scraping the dirt. The strange tools had not harmed the cub. Instead, they had brought a fragile spark of life back. But the pack did not yet know if it was a trick or if it would last. The leader's golden eyes glowed in the firelight. He stood close, his body a wall of strength, ready to strike if the human betrayed them. Every muscle was tight, every breath slow. He had chosen to allow this, but his trust was thin as a blade's edge. The human opened his box again. The blue light from the vials shimmered faintly, casting strange glows across his tired face. He picked up another tube, his fingers careful, his movements slow. He knew every pair of eyes was locked on him. One wolf snarled low. His tail lashed, his hackles rose. He did not believe. He growled louder as a human reached for another cub, warning him to stay away. The leader snapped his jaws, sharp and loud. The growling wolf dropped to the ground, ears flat. The command was final. The human would continue. The mother of the next cub whimpered, torn between fear and hope. She circled once, then lowered herself beside the small body, her nose pressed against her cub's head, her whine trembling. She did not move as the human crawled closer. The human's hands were gentle. He touched the cub softly, scanning its body with a small device. A quiet beep sounded, startling the wolves. They barked sharply, stepping forward, until the leader silenced him again. The human checked the device, nodded to himself, then lifted the injector. He held up in the firelight once more, showing it clearly, reminding the wolves he hid nothing. Then he pressed it to the cub's side and clicked. The cub whimpered weakly. The mother tensed, lips curling, but stayed still. A moment passed, heavy and long. Then the cub's chest rose deeper. The rattling cough lessened. Its paw twitched faintly. A wave of whine spread through the pack. They could not believe it. The sickness was loosening its grip. The leader's eyes narrowed. He did not allow hope to rise too fast, but inside his heart beat stronger. Maybe, just maybe, the strange creature truly could save them. The human pulled back, wiped his brow, and reached for another vial. His breathing was ragged now. His hands shook more than before, but his focus never broke. One by one, he moved from cub to cub. Each time, the wolves tensed. Each time, the mother hovered, torn between attack and surrender. And each time, the cub's cough twitched, then breathed easier than before. It was slow work. The human whispered softly as he worked. Words the wolves could not understand but could feel. His voice was steady, calm, carrying comfort as though he were speaking to the cubs themselves. The fire burned lower, shadows stretching long across the clearing. The wolves kept their circle tight, guarding against the dark beyond. Predators still lurked there, watching with hungry eyes. But none dared step closer, while the wolves stood united. The air inside the clearing grew heavy with the scent of medicine, sharp and strange. It clung to the wolves' noses, making them sneeze and shake their heads. But they endured, because with each breath of that scent came a stronger breath from their young. The leader stayed nearest the human, his eyes never leaving him. He saw the lines of fatigue on a man's face, the sweat dripping, the chest rising and falling with strain. This was not a trick. This was a battle, one the human fought with tools instead of teeth and claws. When the last cub was treated, the human sat back heavily, nearly falling. He placed the injector down, hands shaking, and wiped his face with a trembling arm. His chest heaved with effort. His voice broke the silence again, soft, low, carrying exhaustion but also relief. The wolves pressed close to their cubs. They sniffed their small bodies, ears twitching as they listened. The coughing was softer now. The shaking was less. Their warmth still burned with fever, but the fever no longer climbed higher. For the first time in many nights, the cubs slept without struggle. Whines of wonder filled the air. The mothers licked their cubs, tails wagging weakly. The pack shifted, eyes glancing to the human with something new, not fear, not hate, something closer to respect. But not all were convinced. The young wolf who had growled before barked sharply again. His eyes burned with suspicion. What if this is only for now? What if the cubs die later? His growls carried doubt, his body stiff. The leader turned on him with a snarl, teeth flashing. The younger wolf dropped his gaze, tail curling between his legs. The leader's was final. The human had earned the right to continue. The human did not see this argument. His head had lowered, his body leaning forward, close to collapse. His hands rubbed his eyes, his lips whispering words too soft to hear. He was drained, but he had not stopped until the last cub was touched. The leader stepped closer, his paws silent on the earth. He stood before the human, towering over him. The wolves tensed, unsure what their leader would do. The leader bent his head, lowered his muzzle, and sniffed the human scent. Sweat, dirt, strange medicine. And beneath it all, something steady, something strong. He gave a low rumble, not of threat, not of anger, a sound of acknowledgement. The human lifted his head slowly. His eyes met the leader's. For a moment, neither beast nor man moved. Then the leader turned and padded back to the cubs. His silence carried meaning. You have done well. You will live tonight." The wolves began to relax. They lay near the cubs, forming a circle of warmth around them. The mothers licked their young, their hearts lighter. Some even wagged their tails faintly. The fear was not gone, but hope had returned. The human leaned back, staring at the sky. The moon shone above, pale and bright. His chest rose with heavy breaths, but his lips curved in a faint smile. He had seen too much death on other worlds, too many young lost. Tonight he had saved some, but he also knew this was only the beginning. The sickness was not yet gone. The medicine had given the cubs strength, but the fight would continue. He would need more time, more tools, more will, and the wolves would need to hold their trust. Beyond the clearing, the forest stirred. The predators had not left. They had seen the wolves weakened. They had smelled the sickness. They waited still, hungry and patient. The pack leader raised his head and howled, a sound that rolled across the trees like thunder. It was not the howl of sorrow, nor victory. It was a warning. We are not broken. We are not prey. Stand back or face us. The pack lifted their voices, howling with him. Their song filled the night, strong and fierce. Even the cubs stirred in their sleep, their tiny chests rising with new breath. And in the middle of them all sat the human, tired but alive, the firelight shining on his face. He was not of their kind, not of their world, yet he had placed his life among theirs. And for the first time, the wolves saw him not as a stranger, not as prey, but as something else, something closer to kin. The first treatment was done. The night was not over. The danger was not gone. But hope had been lit like fire in the dark, and the wolves would not forget. The night deepened, heavy and dark. The fire in the clearing burned low, its glow casting faint circles of light against the trees. Beyond that glow, shadows moved. Eyes glimmered in the blackness. Other hunters waiting, patient and cold. The wolf pack knew they were there. Every ear twitched, every tail stiffened. Predators had smelled weakness for days. They had heard the coughing cubs, the cries of the mothers. They had waited for the moment the wolves would break. But tonight, something had changed. The cubs still lay weak, but their breathing was steadier. The human had given them a spark of life, and though the predators watched, they did not yet strike. The wolves stood guard, their circle unbroken, their growls low and constant. The human sat inside the circle, shoulders bent with exhaustion. His hands shook as he cleaned his tools, wiping the injectors, sealing the vials. His body begged for rest, but he knew rest could not come yet. The sickness was not gone. If he stopped now, the cubs might slide back into the grip of death. The pack leader paced near him, golden eyes sharp, ears turned to the forest. He trusted the man for now, but trust was not shared by all. One young wolf could not stay silent. His growl rose louder than before, teeth flashing in the firelight. He barked sharply, circling closer to the human. His meaning was clear. This stranger is a danger. Cast him out before it is too late. The pack shifted nervously. Whines and barks answered. Some agreed. Others shook their heads. The circle trembled, cracks forming in their unity. The leader turned, his body stiff with warning. His growl rumbled deep, a sound that demanded silence. But the young wolf did not yield. His fear was too strong. His bark came again, sharp as a bite. The human lifted his head. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He saw the teeth, the rage, the suspicion in those eyes. Slowly, he set his tools aside and raised his hands, palms open. He made no move to defend himself. His voice came, soft and steady, like before. The wolves quieted for a breath, confused by the calmness in his tone. The young wolf snarled again, but his ears twitched. Something in the human's voice stirred doubt, even as his rage burned. The leader stepped forward at last. His snarl was loud, final. His teeth snapped inches from the young wolf's face. The younger dropped to the ground, ears flat, tail low. The leader's authority could not be questioned. The human would stay. The pack settled again, but unease lingered. Trust was not whole. Suspicion still shadowed the clearing. The human turned back to the cubs. He opened his box and pulled out new tools. A small scanner hummed in his hands, its light moving over the cubs' bodies. The wolves stiffened at the sound, but the leader barked once, silencing them. The medic worked carefully, whispering to himself. His eyes narrowed at what the scanner showed. The infection still clung to the cub's lungs. The medicine had slowed it, weakened it, but it was not gone. More treatment was needed. He reached for another vial. The wolves growled softly at the smell, sharp and bitter. The mothers pressed close, uncertain. The leader stood between them and the human, his presence command. Let him continue. Outside the circle, the predators stirred. Shapes moved in the dark. Twigs snapped under heavy paws. A low hiss echoed from the trees. Something large watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment. The wolves knew they would have to fight soon. Their bodies shifted, ready, but they also knew the humans' work could not be stopped. If the cubs were left untreated, all their guarding would mean nothing. So the pack split their duty. Half circled outward, eyes on the forest, growls deep and sharp. The other half stayed near the human, watching every move, protecting him even as they feared him. The medic bent low, placing the injector against another cub. The hiss came, the whimper, then the steadying breath. The wolves held their ground. The forest grew louder. The threat grew closer. The trial was not just for the human. It was for the wolves, too. They had to fight their fear, fight their doubt, and hold the line against enemies beyond the fire. The cubs stirred, their breath stronger. The predators hissed from the trees, voices hungry. The leader stood tall, his body glowing in firelight, a wall between two worlds. His dying young and the dangers that waited to tear them apart. The night would not give peace. Not yet, but the pack had chosen their path. They would guard the stranger as he guarded their cubs. Their trust would be tested in fire and blood. The trial had begun. The forest slowly shifted from night to morning. A faint silver light touched the treetops, chasing away the darkest shadows. The predators beyond the clearing faded back into the woods, their hungry eyes vanishing with the dark. For now, the pack was safe. Inside the circle of wolves, the cubs stirred. Their tiny bodies, once still and weak, now moved with small signs of strength. One raised its head, wobbling before falling back on the ground. Another let out a soft cry, not of pain but of hunger. The mothers rushed forward, tails trembling, eyes wide. They pressed close, nuzzling their young, licking their fur with relief. The air filled with high-pitched whines and small growls, the voices of life returning. The pack froze, staring in silence. Their hearts pounded with something they had not felt in many nights. Hope. The leader stepped closer. His golden eyes watched the smallest cub. It coughed once, then stretched its paw weakly. Its chest rose with a deeper breath. No longer shallow, no longer rattling. A breath of strength. The leader's body relaxed. His tail lowered, his ears tilted back. For the first time in many nights, his heart was not filled with only fear. The human sat slumped by the fire, his shoulders bent, his hands shaking. His eyes were heavy, his face pale, but his gaze never left the cubs. When he saw them move, a tired smile spread across his lips. He had given all his strength, but the sight of life returning was enough. The wolves turned their eyes to him. The mothers, once ready to strike, now lowered their heads. Their whines were softer, filled not with anger but with gratitude. The younger wolves, still unsure, watched carefully. Suspicion lingered, but it was weaker now. The leader walked toward the human. Each step was slow, heavy with meaning. The pack held its breath. Would he drive the stranger away now that the cubs lived? Would he show fangs, or would he show something else? The human lifted his head, too weak to rise. He looked into the leader's eyes, waiting. His hands remained open, resting on his knees. He had no strength left to defend himself. His life was in the leader's choice. The leader stopped before him. The scarred muzzle lowered until it was inches from a human's face. His breath was warm, his teeth sharp in the morning light. The pack tensed, ready to leap at their leader struck. Instead, the leader gave a low rumble, not a growl of threat, not a snarl of warning. It was deep, steady, carrying respect. His nose touched the human's shoulder just once before he turned away. The pack gasped in soft whines. They understood. The leader had accepted the human. The human closed his eyes, relief washing over him. His chest rose with shaky breath. For the first time since landing on this strange world, he was not alone. The cubs began to whine louder. Hunger filled their voices, stronger than sickness now. The mothers lay down and guided their young to feed. The sound of tiny mouths nursing filled the clearing, a sound sweeter than any song. The wolves wagged their tails. Some brushed against each other, touching noses, licking muzzles. The weight of fear lifted like fog under the sun. The leader howled. His voice rose into the morning sky, not heavy with sorrow but strong with pride. The sound carried far, echoing to the forest. It was a call of survival, a call of defiance against death. The pack lifted their voices with him. Their howls joined together, a song of unity, of life. The cubs stirred the sound, tiny bodies twitching as though they wished to join. The human listened. His eyes watered, though he did not fully understand why. He had heard many cries in his life, cries of pain, of battle, of loss, but never a song like this. It was wild, fierce, and filled with love. It was the song of a family reborn. As the howls faded, the leader turned back to human. His eyes burned with new meaning. No longer just warning. No longer only suspicion. Now there was something closer to trust. The human nodded, though his body shook with fatigue. His lips whispered a promise. He would not stop until the cubs were strong again. The sun rose higher, painting the clearing with light. The shadows of night retreated fully. The predators had gone. The cubs lived. The wolves were whole again. And in their circle stood a human, no longer just a stranger. The dawn of life had come. The days passed slowly, but the sickness did not return. The cubs grew stronger with each sunrise. Their legs, once too weak to hold them, now carried them clumsily across the clearing. They tumbled over each other, growling in play, their small teeth flashing in the light. The mothers watched with joy. Their eyes followed every movement, their tails wagging as their young chased shadows across the ground. No sound was sweeter than the laughter like growls of healthy cubs. The pack had changed. Where there had once been fear and suspicion, there was now calm. The wolves no longer growled at the human. They no longer circled him with doubt. Instead, they accepted his presence. They lay near him when he rested. They brought him food from the hunt. Pieces of fresh kill dropped at his feet as an offering. At first, the human had not understood. He had waved his hands, shaking his head, trying to tell them he could not eat raw meat. But the wolves insisted. To refuse would mean disrespect. So he took the gifts, cooking them slowly over the fire, sharing what he could. The wolves watched with tilted heads, curious at his strange ways, but pleased that he honored their gift. The leader kept closest watch. His golden eyes followed both cubs and human alike. He saw how the man worked, how he touched the cubs with care, how he whispered soft sounds as he checked their health. The leader no longer doubted. The man was no threat. He was something else, an ally, a protector, perhaps even a part of the pack. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with fire, the leader approached the human. He stood tall, scars bright in the fading light. The pack grew silent, watching. The human looked up, unsure what was about to happen. The leader lowered his head, slow and steady. His muzzle touched the human's hand, a gesture of respect, a gesture of belonging. The pack howled in unison. The sound rose high, a song of unity that reached beyond the trees. The cubs stumbled in surprise, then yipped in small voices, trying to join the chorus. The human felt a shiver run through him. He was no longer a stranger on this world. He was no longer alone. For the first time, he belonged to something greater than himself. The days that followed built the bond even deeper. The wolves showed him hidden paths through the forest. They led him to streams where the water was purer and to caves where shelter could be found. They allowed him to walk among their young, to touch them, to laugh softly when they nipped at his boots. And the human gave back. He repaired wounds from hunts, cleaned infections, and even crafted small bandages from the supplies he carried. When his tools ran low, he searched the forest, testing plants and herbs. Some failed. Some burned his tongue or numbed his fingers. But others worked. Slowly, he built new remedies, teaching himself how to heal with the world around him. The wolves watched, learning in their own way. They saw which herbs he chose. They smelled the plants he crushed. They remembered. The pack would never forget. As the moons turned and the cubs grew, the human grew weaker. His supplies were nearly gone, his body thin from hunger and long nights without rest. He hid it well, but the leader saw. The golden eyes missed nothing. One night, when the human sat by the fire with his head bowed, the leader approached. He dropped a piece of fresh kill at the man's feet, larger than before, his way of saying, "You are one of us. You will not be left behind." The man smiled weakly. His hand touched the leader's head, fingers brushing the thick fur. He whispered words the wolves could not understand, but they felt the meaning in his tone: gratitude, loyalty, love. The cubs played nearby, their voices sharp and full of life. They chased each other around the fire, yipping and tumbling. Once, not long ago, those voices had been fading into silence. Now they were loud, strong, unstoppable. The wolves looked upon them and knew the truth. Without the human, there would be no future. His legacy was not written in stone or fire. It was written in the beating hearts of their young. The leader lifted his head and howled to the stars. The pack joined, their voices rising into the night, filling the forest with their song. The human sat among them, listening, his heart full. He knew he had found a family where none was meant to be. And so the story of the wolves and the human medic was sealed. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as one pack. A pack that would carry his memory, his gifts, and his spirit forward, long after the fire that night had turned to ash.